Dog. Good boy.
Hey horror hounds, and welcome back to my latest video. In today's review I'm going to be covering the new popular re-release of Madhouse by Ovidio. The film was released in 1981 and was directed by Italian filmmaker and producer Ovidio G. Assonitis. I sincerely hope that I have pronounced his name correctly. Madhouse has also been titled There Was a Little Girl and When She Was Bad, and that kind of links in with the nursery rhyme aspect that features throughout the movie. This re-released version by Ovidio is the most polished version of the film to date. This was one of the unfortunate titles that got caught up in the video nasties hysteria back in the 1980s and wasn't re-released in the UK until 2004 by a film label called Film 2000. Unfortunately, with that particular version there were some sound issues which Ovidio have since rectified with this new Blu-ray. The film itself looks excellent, it's visually pristine, they've got rid of any sort of grains and specks and digitally removed them, so it looks as new and fresh as it possibly can be while still keeping that kind of weird, like grimy kind of charm to it. The reason this film was caught up in the video nasties panic was to do with its scenes of violence and obscenity, but by today's standards in 2017 it really is not deserving of that label. The plot centres on the protagonist Julia, who is a dedicated school teacher who specialises in educating young deaf pupils. Julia harbours a dark past in which she suffered abuse at the hands of her deranged twin sister. Her twin sister is mentally unstable and has since garnered a really horrible, disfiguring disease. So she is bitter, twisted, and she escapes from the hospital ready to give Julia and herself a 25th birthday party they're never going to forget. Her sister is also accompanied by a terrifying and ferocious Rottweiler who does her evil bidding for her and causes murder and mayhem. And there's nothing more scary than an animal committing the murders. I mean, it's, you know, it adds that, it ups the ante a bit and adds that more terrifying level to the film. The tone of the film shifts from creepy to campy quite rapidly. So it has some really, you know, sinister set pieces. But then it goes totally batshit bizarre, as many films back in this era did. Obviously, in my previous reviews, we've talked about films like the House franchise and Pieces, and how they're very beloved films, but they have got that really campy quality about them. So it's like they give you the laughs and the thrills in equal measure. There will be spoilers included in this review, so if you haven't had the chance to watch Madhouse yet, I suggest you pause this video, go check it out, and then come back here, because there's just so many interesting plot points to discuss with this movie, so I couldn't just like leave it out and just give you a vague review. So the campness is sort of weaved in when it's revealed that Julia's nutty uncle, who happens to be a priest, is also in on the act as well. There's extended sequences of high-octane suspense in this film, but it's done in such a campy, deranged manner. For example, there's the scene where the nutty uncle is terrorising Julia's landlady. He does this by menacingly reciting some old nursery rhymes, which is highly amusing, but it just like adds to the fact that this guy has completely lost the plot and he is completely deranged. Even though I said that Madhouse is pretty tame by 2017 standards, it still does incorporate some sinister set pieces to a chilling effect. One particular moment that is quite effective is there is a young deaf pupil named Sasha who Julia has taken a shine to, and he is classed as her favourite pupil. I think that was a bit weird actually, because I don't know why she particularly favours one kid over the other, but you know, this is just go with it for the movie. It's all for the emotional impact, of course. And he is, an innocent little boy, and he's playing with his frisbee, and then unfortunately he comes across the evil Rottweiler. Now, I am an animal lover, hand on heart, but this dog, oh my gosh, I was just so happy when it actually got its comeuppance, because it's just a really, really nasty beast. And so in this scene he is killed by the dog, but nothing is actually shown, and I think that is so much better than actually showing the struggle, because it cuts from the boy being acquainted with the dog to him then being carried into an ambulance on a stretcher, his lifeless body, and it does add kind of a kind of sad dynamic to the whole piece. As I said, I was so happy when that dog completely got it. There's some great gore in this movie. The gore is few and far between. It's not highly prevalent during the movie, but when it comes, it does really strike a chord, and it's really great. But so in the special features on this disc, there is a interview that was shot in Rome this year with the director, and it's called Ovidio Nasty, which I think is a great play on the label. So there's an interview with him, and he talks about films that influenced Madhouse, or There Was a Little Girl, whichever title that you want to go with, and one of them that he mentions is The Shining, and the fans will get a total kick out of this moment, because so Julia's boyfriend, who's a psychologist called Sam, who looks a bit of a Tom Selleck, Tom Atkins kind of type, he is he's protecting Julia, trying to rescue her from the captive situation that her uncle and deranged sister have put her in, and he is being attacked by the dog, and he's hiding in this room, and then of course the dog does a complete Jack Torrance and his face bursts through the door. It's really, really funny, and it's like, here's doggy. He doesn't actually say that, but I said that when I was watching the movie. And then the next thing, the boyfriend character kills the dog, just goes for it, and as I said, I'm an animal lover, and I can't believe I'm even saying this on camera, but I was just seeing that drill, like being impaled through that dog's head, was really, really satisfying, because it was such an evil dog, and it killed this really cute ginger cat that really upset me. So I don't feel too guilty about saying that, plus it's not real, so it's all good. If you have seen Madhouse, the climax itself will be a bit over familiar for you, especially if you're acquainted with the 1981 Canadian slasher Happy Birthday to Me. So both these films came out exactly the same year. I think it was probably pure coincidence, but they do have very similar plots, very similar themes, and the climax is identical. I honestly don't think they copied each other. I have no idea, like, on the logistics of it all. But I think if I have to choose between those two films, Madhouse is the superior film for me, because I feel Happy Birthday has this, excellent marketing about it. It's got, it entices you thinking it's going to have all these really elaborate death scenes, and it tells you that there's like 6 murders or something and you've never seen them done before, and the outcome is pretty disappointing. The death scenes are heavily cut and you really just don't get to see much. And as I said, this one isn't as gory as people might think, and it's like a fake level of like fake bloody gore, and it's still just, for its time, it is really, really good. I think ultimately Madhouse does it better with the whole scenario of the deranged birthday party, where Julia is confronted by all her dead friends sat around a table. This is a plot device that has been done over and over again, but there's something quite wicked and macabre about the whole thing. I was instantly sold on Madhouse from the opening sequence. It's just a black background and the camera zooms in on what seems to be a rocking chair and 2 little girls, and it's got the creepy vocals of this man singing Rockabye Baby, I believe, and there's something, it sets the tone immediately that this is going to be something that is going to be quite chilling and a bit weird. But the thing with the film is this opening scene, it starts off and it shows a really horrid little girl bashing the face in of another little girl. But then when the camera cuts to the gore element of it, it looks really, really fake. Like, obviously, it's obviously a dummy that she's smashing in the face, but there's blood pouring out. So I was thinking to myself, is this Julia has, you know, snapped and attacked her sister, and that's where the revenge element comes in? Or was it the evil sister bashing in her doll's face and it's all symbolic? It's kind of ambiguous and open-ended overall, and the director gets away with it. He like, instead of, you know, spoon-feeding the audience and giving us all this exposition, he kind of leaves the movie open to interpretation. There's no true motive for the uncle, like, why is he doing it? He is just absolutely crazy, and you just have to accept that rather than, you know, get an explanation like, why is this going on? So it is all a little bit flat on one level, because, as I say, it does not spoon feed the audience and leaves you to you know, play along and with the guesswork, basically. So Assonitis is, you know, completely leaves it open to interpretation, and he tries to save himself by concluding the film with this quote on the end of the screen that says, "Life differs from the play only in this: it has no plot, all is vague, desultory, unconnected, till the curtain drops with a mystery unsolved." And that is his way of getting away with not actually going that extra mile and telling the audience what is going on. There were two reasons why I was interested in watching Madhouse. Number one, it's a new Arrow Video release, and I do like to support Arrow Video, and they do bring out a lot of really cool cult films that you wouldn't necessarily get to see otherwise. So that was the one reason. And then also the cover is absolutely creepy and awesome, and I really love it, and I just knew with the aspect of the animal that would freak me out, because I do have a slight fear of dogs. Like, if I know the dog is well looked after and well trained and it's friendly, if I know that, like, I'm totally fine. But yeah, it's stemming from childhood that I've had a little bit of fear of dogs, especially ones like these Rottweilers. So that drew me in as well, and I just love the idea of creepy children, even though she's not actually a child in the movie, but it's, you know, I really do love the cover of Madhouse there. I think it looks awesome. And then the second reason I really wanted to see it is as I'm forever curious about titles that were put on the banned list. There were 72 titles, as all you horror freaks, of course you know this, you know, I don't need to tell you, but for those of you who may be watching this who aren't as familiar with horror movies, then yes, so there were 72 titles on the Video Nasties list, and this was one of them, and as I said, it was to do with violence and obscenity. I have a sneaking suspicion it could have been the depiction of violence against animals and children. Graham Bright, if you remember that buffoon, he decided to say that Video Nasties would have an adverse effect on vulnerable adults, children and dogs, apparently. So I'm just thinking it was just a lazy reason. Put this on the list just because it had violence against dogs and children. That is my only that's the only interpretation I can pick from this. What always interests me about this period in history with the Video Nasties, sometimes I just feel low budget films were an easy target rather than the big studio releases. I mean, I cannot fathom how Friday the 13th, obviously big Paramount studio release, and then Nightmare on Elm Street, which was New Line Cinema, like, they are, you know, iconic horror films, and they are just as nasty and mean-spirited as any of the low budget films, but obviously, you know, they were overlooked when it came to banning certain movies. I think it was done so randomly. I honestly don't believe that it was done with any real thought whatsoever. It was just any sort of indication of violence or sex or something, it would just instantly, you know, be tarnished. And I think Madhouse, unfortunately, got caught up here because you know, of it being a low budget Italian horror movie, and just for its depictions of violence against, you know, what society considers vulnerable. I don't think the context was looked into properly, because it's actually just quite a traditional stalk and slash horror film. It's not, you know, anything out of the ordinary, and you know, it's heavily influenced by, you know, films like Psycho and The Shining, and I just honestly I just think they just took, you know, video releases at that time as an easy target, watched clips without any real context to what the film's about, and I think that is what ultimately happened, and it's really, really unfair. But thankfully, because we have got these, you know, fantastic distributors out there now with Arrow Video, Shameless Films, 88 Films, they're just bringing the cult film back to the forefront. They're opening them to a new generation, and I think that's absolutely incredible, and I hope they just continue doing what they're doing, because it's, you know, amazing for, you know, fans like me, because I grew up in the 90s and I obviously didn't live through these films on their original releases, so I think it's really nice that I can go back and discover some, you know, gems that I might not have ever seen before. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Madhouse, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. I'd love to know, which title do you prefer for this movie? Would you prefer it to have been called There Was a Little Girl or And Then She Was Bad? Which one do you think works best for the film? Secondly, I would like to know about what your thoughts are on the film in general. What interpretation did you derive from it? What do you think was the motivations behind terrorising Julia, and what the uncle's beef was? I just love to know what people think, because it's just, as I say, so open-ended, and it, you know, it could literally be anything. And then, of course, you know, I obviously love talking about the video nasties. Do you think Madhouse warranted the ban label that it did? I'm sure most horror fans will say no anyway, but it's just an interesting discussion. And yeah, what video nasties films do you recommend I should check out that, you know, maybe I haven't, and any particular favourites? That would be really cool. As always, my social media links will be featured in the description box below. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. I also write for lovehorror.co.uk, as well as my own blog, Hayley's Horror Reviews. So as I say, just check out all that stuff, because I live, breathe and eat horror movies, quite literally. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!